Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special cinematic analysis from this video game, League of Legends, and presenting the Star Guardians. In this video, I would like to sort of analyze the cinematography and how they present each of the characters within the rooms, the blocking, and shot by shot of how they tell the story from one to another. And there's a few things after trying to look through the animation that I find quite interesting and I would like to share with you guys. So in the start of the video, we see Neeko running around this object behind her, and there's an enemy, Xayah, throwing feathers at her, and then she runs out of the area to go into hiding, and then Xayah pulls back her feathers and we get to see this wide shot again from the previous couple 10 seconds or so. It's very close-up shots and we couldn't really get our bearings, but now we get our first bearing on this large view angle from the ceiling of this circular area. Neeko would be on the upright side over here running around, and then what's curious is how Neeko sort of appears right in front of Xayah once again, and technically because she previously was on the top right hand side, basically running around here as Xayah runs towards her this way, throwing arrows, feathers at her. And let's get into Photoshop actually to sort of present it, at least how I would like to do it. We have Xayah running this way, while Neeko was going around this way and then possibly runs out towards this way. But that's the assumption, that she will run this way once again, trying to dodge the attacks of upcoming feathers coming back to Xayah. Even though Xayah was sort of shooting out feathers, let's say this direction, as she runs through and it starts to look like those bicycles, how they sort of intertwine from the center. But then regardless of where Xayah is, all the feathers will of course come back to her this way. But the next shot becomes curious, where Neeko appears up once again, where she appears right in front of Xayah. But this is the assumption that, again, this statue here, so Neeko would be around here, even though she's supposedly over there, but the statue would be on her left side. So it's a continuation of running towards the right side. She does a small disappearance and then appears behind Xayah. And here's the first part that gets me very curious. I paused at the right time so you're able to see Rakan, but the first time viewing, it was a little bit too fast for me, so I only got to sort of see this scene clearly once again. So to me at first, it just seems like we went from the zoom in Xayah and then we see Xayah again where Rakan was behind her. But then the next shot we have Rakan being in the front and Xayah pushing him away. Not a mistake, but it was just my own eyes deceiving me. So let's go through one by one each scene. So the first frame we have here is going towards Xayah again, and then here we have Rakan running towards her, and then the next frame we have Rakan again standing in the way, opening his shield for her. But the next shot is a 180-degree turn to face Xayah once again. I think they did this because they're still sort of focusing on Xayah as a character, since the previous few seconds of the animation, they were sort of introducing her from there, showing this very cool power. And that's sort of another reason why I think they took Zoe and had her walk out of frame to be able to just feature this amazing skill of Xayah without needing to have Zoe being in the shot, and only have her appear again later on after that first shot is done. And since they're still in the introduction phase of Xayah and don't want to show Rakan off just yet, I think that's sort of the reason why they did this 180 camera turn to show Xayah in front of Rakan being protected. And so the next frame after that, they do another 180 degree where Rakan is then behind. Now, looking through again, I wouldn't be able to really tell beyond these pillars actually, because technically if we go back here, Xayah is here, and then behind her is the statue and the cage. But then when we go and do that 180 degree, we get the pillars instead, and that's how we would know that they did a 180, besides the seeing Rakan run in to protect her in the last minute, few frames. It's a little bit too fast for me personally, but there are more sort of things to be able to see where the camera is, and not so confusing for the viewers. And so they did another 180, and this gets a little bit more clear since we know the relationship between these two. So if she's in front, then he's behind, and the next shot is him in front, she's behind. So they did another 180 to show her upset with Nico, and then the next shot she pushes him away, so it's a wider shot again, and we see the background change as well, so we can clearly know where the camera is in relationship. And so Nico is right behind them. I'll let it go back to this shot. The special effects is a little bit too big to be able to see where Nico is, but that's not really an issue at all. This is sort of the next thing that also got me really curious, because now they're having this top-down perspective, and this ship coming out is a very distinctive feature that is unique to everything else going on within the image. Even this tree sticking out isn't as prominent, even though it's not as poking out as far as the ship still takes most precedent within this frame. And then we see Nico running on the side just now. But then now that we come to this shot, the ship seems to just be gone. I don't know if it's like being blocked by this pillar or what's really going on. And we come through and the ship is gone here as well. Again, I'm just a little bit confused on how or why it's not here. Once again, Nico is here, and she's technically going to reach the ship within like the frame. Like she doesn't have to go like up a few floors, since this is like a spiraling walkway slowly going up. Nico is about to reach the ship anyways. If Nico was down here, then sure, she has to go up like one floor before reaching the ship. So keep in mind where Nico is, and she's about to reach the ship. And then we have this sort of wider shot once again, but no ship in frame. And this is like with the logical presumption. I hope it's logical that we are looking through Nico's eyes as she's going up and she's showing us what she sees, especially with this transition of her own like memory or dream sequence of what she sees. And this is a very cool scene, though once again might be slightly drawn out. I'll take that back, not drawn out. But then she's running up, and then that's the ship itself that she flips over, and we see the ship here once again. So the ship is right here, and the ship is being used for the cinematic, but it's just very curious how it's missing here in this shot. And then I would like to show the actual ship again right here. And technically I can't really go down any lower, otherwise the play button would appear. But you sort of get what I mean, that Nico flips around this mass that has sort of fallen off. We got a few very beautiful shots, nothing to say here, because someone else, TB Skyen, did an analysis, and it's all pretty great. So going to go to the next scene that sort of kind of caught me off guard, per se, when watching it for the first time. And the first time that I was watching, wasn't really trying to analyze it to begin with, just wanting to like enjoy the cinematic for what it is first, and then sort of analyze it and study from it later. But a great expression once again, and the smashing down, explosion. This is something that I kind of picked up just now as well. We get this explosion, and this is already one wave hitting Zoe, but Zoe then is either there's no effect of the shockwave going through behind Zoe since it already hit her in the previous shot right here, but then Zoe jumps down and then there's a second shockwave going through. This is something that kind of happened as well with this shot. Let's take a look real quick. Zoe charging up her Q, and then she already threw it out. And then when we come back to the shot again, we see Zoe going to throw the Q again, which is not a problem. It's not a problem at all. It's just pointing out that they kind of decide to go back in time a little bit because they need to feature Xayah charging up her ulti, and then now that Xayah's up there, they're able to sort of show Zoe throwing her Q. Now let's look at the sort of time frame here. They showed Zoe shooting her Q first, then they went back a few seconds to show Xayah coming up charging her ulti, and then when they show this wide frame, Xayah is already up there, so it's following Xayah's timeline of charging it up and throwing it, while Zoe has to rethrow her Q. I wonder what would happen if we have Xayah jumping up first, charging up her ulti, then we show Zoe going to throw her Q, and then basically they both will have like their own projectiles throwing at the same time. That wouldn't be a good idea, simply because they're trying to show Zoe first. Zoe just came in just now, so shifting back to Xayah first again would be a little bit too sudden. We want to have a little bit more time with Zoe throwing her Q, and then okay, that's enough time with Zoe for now. Let's shift a little bit back to Xayah as the secondary to throw her ultimate. So this seems to be like a second shockwave again, like Zoe getting hit by a shockwave and then diving in with her R ultimate to sort of dodge the second shockwave. That's just how it looks. A storytelling perspective, as I kind of said in a previous video in my gaming channel, doing this analysis twice. Very cool that Xayah jumps in to help her lover after ignoring him 2 times in the beginning of the animation. Something very confusing the first time I watched the short again was we see the ground falling, but then we have this black transition going up. That really sort of made me confused the first time around, and what they're actually trying to show is this debris is the debris in the new scene already. My first interpretation and thought was that the debris was from this room and then we transition to the next room, and so technically we would prefer rocks falling from the supposed ceiling we are in our perspective, and then transition us to the next 2D dimension area. But again, instead the artist chose to use debris in the next area as the transition to the new area. And so now we're in the 2D world, and they have this very epic fight, more transition between one person to another, and like rotating each of the characters around and around. Nothing to complain here. And just great animation all around, from 2D to 3D. And let's just let this play through. This is such a cool shot. I kind of missed the frame here of one of the hero's friends was able to come back just in time to save her friend. But another thing that kind of took me off is just how good the textures of these broken rocks are from the previous shots of anime and like a little bit cartoony anime style. And then we have this boom, realistic rocks everywhere. Like the textures on the walls are of course more realistic, but that's kind of fine. But then I don't know why, just seeing the inside of the debris just pulled me out of it. I was like, whoa, look at that. But a very epic shot, very beautiful background. But that's kind of it and all I wanted to say in this animation short. If you want to see like more animation analysis, there's this guy named TB Skyen that has already done a video about it. That's why I'm not really talking about those things in this video, and wanted to just talk about new things that wasn't really mentioned in his video, and hoped that I could sort of further the discussion a little bit more. And of course, really love the animation and the shots. Hopefully I didn't come out as too negative. That was certainly not my intention. It's all for education purposes, and I hope to see you all next time then. Good night.